Have you ever had a moment that made your skin crawl? A shadow where there shouldn't be one? A whisper in an empty room, or something you simply can't explain? If so, we want to hear from you. Here at the Haunted UK podcast, we're always on the lookout for spine-tingling stories to feature in our end-of-season listener episodes and our short haunt series. Whether it's a chilling encounter, a mysterious experience, or something that's haunted you for years, we want your tale. Send your story to contact us at hauntedukpodcast.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Facebook, X at Haunted UK Pod, TikTok and Instagram at Haunted UK Podcast, or visit our website www.hauntedukpodcast.com. Now, if you love what we do and want even more haunted goodies, then you can support the show on Patreon and Ko-fi. We've got 2 brilliant tiers, Possessed and Spooked, both packed with bonus content, exclusive episodes, and extra material that'll keep you up all night. But that's not all. We've launched a brand new sister podcast, Haunted UK Fiction, and we're calling all storytellers. Whether you're a published author, an aspiring writer, or someone with a natural gift for spinning eerie tales, we're looking for original fictional short stories and novellas with strong paranormal or supernatural themes. Think suspenseful, mysterious, atmospheric, terrifying, thought-provoking, even darkly magical. If your story is selected, we'll professionally narrate, record, mix and master it into an audiobook-style format, then feature it on the show. You'll get a copy of the finished production to use however you like, and you'll retain full ownership of your work. Submit your story to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com and follow us on Instagram at hauntedukfiction. So whether it's truth or fiction, if it's haunted, we want it. Now, sit back and enjoy the episode. Dad was moved into a private room as he was declining in health. Due to the medication being administered, he was sleeping more and more. This is where little events made me question all I believed in before about life after death. As soon as he moved into the room, a little sparrow, which seemed to be injured, appeared outside by the glass doors. The sparrow looked as though it wanted to come into the room. A few days passed, and the sparrow remained by the glass doors, observing. This is episode 70 of the Haunted UK podcast, and our first foray into your listener stories. We've reached the end of another season, meaning it's once again time for listener stories. This season, we have a fantastic selection for you to listen to, and as always, it's been both a pleasure and sometimes a terrifying experience to read through all your stories and assemble them into these brilliant episodes. So dim the lights, light a candle, perhaps get comfortable if you can, because it's time to hand it over to you, the listeners, once again. Our first listener story comes to us from Dave in Dorset. Dave is a believer in ghosts and the paranormal and is also a medium, though he isn't currently practicing. Here are his stories. My first experience with a ghost was after my grandfather died when I was 5 years old. I came in from the garden in tears and said that Grandad had just walked past me and didn't stop or say anything. He'd been dead for about 3 months at that point. I could also smell pipe tobacco whenever there was a feeling of being watched. The experience didn't have a sinister feel. In fact, it was quite nice knowing my grandfather was there. When I was about 18 or 19, I had a dream that I was on the motorway on my way to college, and on a certain slip road I nudged the back of a grey car with a distinctive number plate. A woman then got out of the car and started shouting at me with a distinctly Polish accent. The next morning, as I was leaving, I considered avoiding the motorway to get to college and taking the lanes and B roads instead. But I had a friend riding with me to whom I'd spoken about the strange dream, who told me not to be daft, that it was only a dream and everything would be fine. We were several junctions into the journey and all seemed fine on the motorway. I'd mostly put the dream to the back of my mind by then, so by the time we got off the motorway, I had more or less forgotten about it altogether. Suddenly there was a screech of brakes and a loud bang as I hit the back of a grey VW Golf with a private plate on it. A blonde-haired Polish lady jumped out and began shouting at me in broken English. My friend sat, white as a sheet, speechless and in shock. Then, just a few days ago, I was working in a quarry as a machine driver. I was tasked with breaking down some large rock using a hydraulic chisel attached to a JCB digger. As I worked, I kept seeing a figure out of the corner of my eye, but every time I turned to look, there was nothing there. I removed my sunglasses to clean them, checked the window of the machine for a smear or dirt. I even moved the machine to a different angle in case it was the sun's reflection playing with my mind. Despite all this, I kept seeing the figure on and off for over an hour. I stopped for a break, and upon walking to the mess room, I found myself saying, "Goodbye, Zonk. I'll see you later on," out of nowhere. Zonk was an old stonemason that I knew who drank in the same pub as me and had previously worked in the quarry I was working in. I shook off the strange thought, chalking it up to my mind doing loops on me. That evening, the quarry manager came out to us in the changing room and said he got some unfortunate news that Zonk had been found dead in his flat that morning after suffering a fatal heart attack. I later went on to work for another quarry, and talking to a member of the office staff one day, I found myself asking, out of nowhere, "Is your little girl deaf in the left ear?" She said no and looked at me strangely. The next day, she came over to tell me that I was right. Her little girl had called off school that day with an ear infection and deafness in her left ear. These are just a few of the things that have happened to me over the years. Kindest regards, Dave. We now join frequent story submitter and highly valued long-time listener Sam Ingram. Sam has sent in a number of intriguing, frightening and thought-provoking stories over the years, and even roped her sister into sharing experiences of her own. She never fails to amaze, and the following stories are certainly not disappointing. Hi Steve, having a cuppa of Yorkshire tea in between packing boxes, so I thought I'd write down my bits from work. I started a new job as a library officer in June last year. Built 50 years ago, the building is considered fairly old by Australian standards. I have a habit of picking up on unseen presences, and I could feel something in that space from the moment I walked in. The staff have a rotating 2-week roster, with the closing shift having minimal coverage. The primary task of those working the closing shift is to make sure everyone is out and secure the building. Whilst working one such evening, I mentioned to a colleague that the library feels creepy at night. Once they realised I was open to paranormal talk, a few colleagues recounted some of their eerie experiences to me. One woman was shelving books when she saw someone in her peripheral vision walk around the other side of the bookshelves. When my colleague walked around to check, there was no one there. The unsettling part is, is that the shelves in that bit of the library are low, as it's the children's section. The woman didn't see this person walk anywhere else. They'd simply vanished. Another occurrence took place when a colleague was sitting in the workroom at the back. During a typical closing shift, one person stays at the back to answer the phone, whilst the other two stay at the front to help remaining guests and close the library up for the night. The colleague in the back workroom distinctly heard someone walk by down the hall, behind the dividing wall, and then open the door where the ladies' toilets are. Presuming it was one of the staff members who hadn't gone home yet, she got up to check, but was shocked to find no one there. The same colleague was sitting at the service desk in the library one day when she saw a pair of disembodied legs walking next to some shelves. She and a couple of others have also seen a shadowy outline and someone looking through the window at night. After hearing these stories, myself and the other girls were freaked out. The ghosts are definitely more active when the library is quiet. For example, staff have arrived for their shifts and found books on the floor. There have also been a few occurrences where colleagues have seen them come off the shelves on their own. Out of curiosity, they tried to find out who it might be haunting the library, so a few staff members rolled out a trolley full of books by different authors. They asked out loud if the ghost could let them know what its name was by knocking a book off the trolley. When they came back the next morning, none of the books had moved. Staff surmised that perhaps the ghost's name didn't appear in the selection of books on the trolley, so they decided to simply give it the name Hazel. As for myself, I've often experienced the feeling of someone standing behind me, looking over my shoulder, or watching me from a dark corner of the library. When I first started working there, it was as though I was being sussed out. I got shivers a couple of times, and not because I was cold. One day, my boss came in to inform me that I would be the only one in one morning for a while, and that I would have to turn the alarm off and start setting up by myself. On the first morning, I was in the main part of the library when I heard the distinctive noise of the back door opening. I felt relief wash over me, as I didn't like being on my own. After 2 or 3 minutes, I decided to go and say hi, and was greeted by 2 of my colleagues coming through the door, which requires a key to unlock. I asked if anyone else was here, as I'd heard the door open earlier. My colleagues replied, "Hazel," and I felt a deep sense of fear take over me. Later that day, when my boss arrived, I told her what had happened. She said, "Are you sure it wasn't the cleaners?" But I knew it wasn't, as I'd only heard the door. No sound of people cleaning or working. Everything afterwards was silent. I knew with absolute certainty that I was the only one in the library that morning. My boss approached me later and quietly told me that she'd also heard the door open when she was alone in the building, and she thought someone was there too. There was one time when I definitely saw a lady walking to the children's bookshelves where my colleague had previously seen someone vanish. The woman I saw also vanished. The strangest thing about it is that she looked completely normal, but somehow, I knew she wasn't a real person. A few weeks after the incident where I saw a figure, I was one of 3 staff members in the building turning off the computers and putting the till away at the end of the day. One of my colleagues was making the rounds to ensure all the patrons were out, while the rest of us were waiting until we could officially close for the night. Suddenly, something caught my eye. I turned my head slightly to catch a figure, or part of a figure, which seemed like a real person quickly walking between the aisles of books. Because of the angle, I saw her cream-coloured skirt, which seemed just below knee length, and a light brown jumper. I sensed that she was not an actual person. My colleague saw my face as I said, "I just saw someone." I think she realised I wasn't referring to a living person. I began to feel a bit bewildered and scared. My colleague walked to the area where I'd seen the figure and called out, "Is anyone there?" When she came back, I told her I was freaking out. "They can't hurt you," she said. I told her that I simply didn't want to see them. When leaving the library, the lights get turned off in the middle of the space, leaving it quite dark as we make our way to the staff area to exit the building. Sometimes, It feels like I'm being watched or that someone invisible has rushed up to me, causing my heart rate to increase very quickly, but I do try my best to stay calm. We lock up and leave. My boss would always arrive before any of the staff. Part of her routine was to disarm the alarm for the building, but this time she found there wasn't one. In fact, she found that the whole keypad wasn't working, as though the batteries had died. She asked if the system had been armed the night before. I had personally set it and knew it was on. The people who attend to the alarm system came out and said it was a blown fuse or an electrical fault. Could this be from paranormal activity? A few smaller things have happened that could potentially be explained away, but given my experiences at the library, I wonder whether they are paranormal in nature. A few smaller things have happened that could potentially be explained away, but given my experiences at the library, I wonder whether they are paranormal in nature. One time, I had my reading glasses in my little trolley whilst working. I finished for the day and went home, not realizing until later that I'd forgotten my glasses, but I couldn't be bothered to return to get them, especially since it was the weekend. On my return, I looked everywhere, but to no avail. I figured I must have put them in my bag or locker. I even checked in lost property, but found myself having to go and get a new pair of glasses a few weeks later. A very expensive exercise. Eventually, I put it down to the fact that a patron must have nabbed them. A couple of months went by, and then one day a colleague found my glasses on a shelf behind and under some books. It was so weird. I figured maybe Hazel had borrowed them for a bit. Who knows? The other day, I put my work cardigan on a shelf near my desk and left it there figuring I would pick it up after my day off, but when I went back it was nowhere to be found. Perhaps Hazel has hidden that too. Lately, things have been much quieter, but I can still sense someone in there. Their presence just isn't as strong. That's it for now. Still enjoying the show. Regards, Sam. Now travelling to the other side of the world, we read a story sent in to us from Catherine in America. More specifically, the very storied state of Louisiana, where she had a terrifying experience during a sleepover at a friend's house, not long after the friend's grandfather had passed away. Hello from across the pond. My name is Catherine from Louisiana. I recently started listening to your podcast and have enjoyed it very much. My whole life I've loved ghost stories, but I would sometimes become disappointed that I didn't have my own story to tell. I found it odd that I was envious of all these individuals who'd had experiences, good or bad. However, one day while listening, there was a story where the person mentioned hearing footsteps. I thought how common that was with ghost stories, and then it hit me. I did have my own ghost story. Back in 2003, I was in the 3rd grade and would often go over to my friend Amanda's house for sleepovers. One day, I went over and her mother sat me down to let me know that Amanda's grandfather had recently passed away. Amanda's grandfather's yard backed up to hers, and we would go over frequently to swim in his pool. I remembered feeling sadness for the kind man that he was, and recalled always seeing him smiling and hanging out in relaxed clothing and sandals. As kids do, we played hard, and when it was time for bed, we asked her mother if we could sleep in the guest room because it had a TV. Her mother agreed, and we jumped into bed. However, her mother turned the TV away from us with the volume off, I guess to have it act as a nightlight. The light of the TV lit the doorway of the room. The guest room was on the other side of the house, away from her parents' room and down a hallway from Amanda's bedroom. The guest room window looked out to the front porch. As we lay there giggling, we heard footsteps on the front porch. I remember being unsettled and frightened. Stranger danger was the first thing I thought of. Being 9 or 10 years old, I was old enough to know that whoever it was, they were an unwelcome visitor. It was far too late for someone to be at her home and walk from the street into her yard and onto the porch. We sat there frozen for a moment, until Amanda screamed for her mum. Amanda's mom came rushing in, and Amanda recounted what we had heard coming from the front porch. Her mom looked through the window but couldn't see anything, so she went to the front door. There was no one around. She returned to tell us that it may have been the air conditioner kicking in and try to get some sleep. She left the guest room door open in case we needed her again. Slightly unnerved, we lay there and continued to chat in hushed tones until we started hearing these crisp footsteps in the hallway. The noise was very sharp. It sounded like dress shoes. Not heels, but an Oxford type of shoe. The footsteps were getting louder, and I remembered staring at the open door of the bedroom, reluctantly preparing myself to see a person appear. I remember my heartbeat and how I felt it could come out of my chest. I could feel myself frozen, gripping onto the sheets of the bed. Amanda screamed again for her mum, much louder this time. Her mom hurried in again, this time looking a bit annoyed. She let us know there was no one in the home. She told us to relax and to get some sleep. To this day, I remember the fear, and I can't believe I was able to fall asleep that night. The next day, we told her mom what had happened, and she told us maybe it was Amanda's grandfather checking in on us. That notion calmed me. To my knowledge, I never spoke of that experience to anyone else and carried on being a carefree child. I think knowing or thinking it was him made that experience less scary, and I was able to carry on all these years without going back on it. I lost contact with Amanda shortly after that incident due to us moving to different schools. But thanks to your podcast, I was able to remember this experience. I excitedly told my sister about it once I realized I had my very own ghost story. I mentioned how I found it odd because the men's dress shoes didn't make sense. Her grandfather always dressed comfortably and wore his sandals. My sister looked at me and stated, "Well, Kate, wasn't he a local judge? Maybe that could explain his shoes." Unsure, I googled his obituary, and sure enough, he was a judge for many years, dearly loved and respected by his community. Some people have frightening stories, however, I find peace and comfort in mine. Our loved ones may go, but they occasionally visit and check in. Thank you for reading the stories that so many people need to get off their chests. Catherine. For our penultimate story, our very own Marie from the show has a story that she would like to share with us. It's an account about her old home and was only revealed to her the day she moved out. Otherwise, she may have moved out a lot sooner. On July the 3rd, 2020, we had just moved house. We were all delighted but knackered. The cats had grown feral, hissing, frightened in their strange new alien home. My mum had been helping all day, and finally she gets to sit down in a borrowed picnic chair as the final box comes in. My husband Tom passes her a cup of tea and she says, "There's something I need to tell you about your now former home." We are nothing but ears. It had a ghost. I stared at her, my own cup of tea frozen in midair. "Sorry, you what?" "You had a ghost, and I saw it." "Don't tell them about that," said my dad, swatting it away like a fly, embarrassed. "No, I said I would tell them when they moved, and I am." My mum, despite my dad squirming with embarrassment at her side, went on to tell us that one afternoon in our house, she had indeed seen a ghost. She had never seen one before or since, and for a second, she thought she had gone stone mad. 6 years before, when we were away hot-footing it around the States for our honeymoon, with not much of a care for the supernatural or anything really, my parents and my in-laws thought it would be a lovely idea to finish the painting of walls we had haphazardly started in our bedroom months before, which, in our usual way, we had abandoned. The story goes that Andrew, my father-in-law, had finished painting, and my mum was upstairs sorting out things. He said cheerio to my mum and left her on her own. She carried on but felt slightly ill at ease, as if someone was behind her. Suddenly, the front door banged shut. like a gust of wind had rattled through. My mum, slightly taken aback, assumed it was Andrew, and she shouted out his name.
Andrew, is that you?
The air felt thick with a knowing that if she walked out of the bedroom, there would be someone, something there, and it wasn't Andrew. And the silence was heavy, expectant. So, feeling pretty on edge, she braced herself and walked to the top of the landing and stood in horror as she watched a woman stride past at the bottom of the stairs with an air of purpose, determination, and on through to the narrow hall. The lady was entirely grey in Edwardian clothes with her hair piled high, her head leaning forward in a rush, but looking about as she went, completely solid. My mum was too scared to scream and bizarrely ran down the stairs after her with the slight worry that she was a real person. With no sign of her anywhere, my mum made a swift turn and legged it and drove her car out of there with the accelerator to the floor. The funny thing is that I never felt anything ghostly there. It was old as the hills, if you count a 1911 terrace as being old as hills. But I never felt unwelcome there. Never felt the atmosphere change. Not as much as a light bulb flicker. Nothing. And I was always looking out for it. It was my first home, and I can only wonder that maybe she liked us, and she was just checking the house was fine while we were away. The new colour on the walls, to our liking. Finally, we hear from Mark, a listener with some serious paranormal credentials, who shares some chilling stories from his time in his Oxfordshire home years ago. Hi Steve, absolutely love the podcast. Your levels of research and balanced views are unmatched and so well written. My name is Mark, and I've been a paranormal investigator and parapsychologist for over 25 years now, and have experienced many unexplained occurrences. This is a true account of some unexplainable happenings that myself and my wife at the time experienced in our home. They occurred around 2004 when our son was around 18 months old. We lived in an end-of-terrace house at Ferriston built in the 1940s in Banbury, Oxfordshire. From the moment we moved in, I hated being alone in the house. There was always a feeling of being watched, no matter the time of day. The activity started with little things. Things that made you ask yourself, did I really just hear that? When alone in the house, I would often hear my name called.
Mark.
I would be in the shower. Hear my name called.
Mark.
Turn off the shower and shout hello. Hello? Get no response. Resume showering and hear my name called again.
Mark.
Along with the name calling, I would be woken from my sleep by the sound of a rasping breath in my ear. I would explain it away as dreaming or imagination, but it began happening far too often to be ignored. I also kept seeing an old lady in my mind's eye and could picture her stood over us, leaning just inches from our faces, watching us sleep. Upstairs on the landing area, we could hear the sound of a loud bang vibrate through the entire house, like someone had jumped and landed on the floorboards. But when we would go and check, we'd never find anyone or anything there. These inexplicable events carried on happening until one night, things finally came to a head in a sequence of terrifying events. My son used to have a Disney Tigger radio that would play Tigger's song, The Wonderful Thing About Tiggers. This radio had been put in a bag and placed in the loft months previously. One night, we were jolted awake by the sound of this toy radio continuously playing, followed by the loud bangs on the landing like someone jumping up and down. My wife and I both sat up in bed, then froze as we heard the sound of something running rapidly around our bed. This lasted for about 5 seconds. Then my wife said she could see multicolored lights hovering about 6 feet from the ground by our closed bedroom door. We both sat looking at the door. Then my wife screamed that something had grabbed her leg.
Oh my God, my leg!
The entire experience was terrifying. I got out of bed to check on our son, who was still fast asleep. Things went quiet then, and the rest of the night was uneventful. The next day, I opened the loft and grabbed the Tigger radio out of the bag. I turned it on, but it wouldn't work. The batteries inside were dead. We continued to experience the name-calling and raspy breaths over the coming weeks. We contacted a psychic medium who agreed to come to our house, and she told us she could see a confused older woman who appeared to be attached to me. I was told that I was sensitive to spirits and very open, somewhat like a beacon that was attracting spirits towards me. The medium said she helped the old woman cross over and taught me how to close my abilities down so as not to attract any more spirits. After this, the house felt normal again, and we had no more events, and life carried on. My marriage ended, but I have 2 sons who are now in their 20s, and I still go on investigations across the UK. There is another story I'd like to share that involves Adele and her lyric, "Hello from the Other Side." After all my years of parapsychology and investigations, I still can't explain what happened. 21st of November 2015 is a date etched in my brain, as it is the day my beloved Nan Hilda passed away. I'd visited my Nan in hospital the day before, feeling it would be the last time I would be able to see her alive. I gave her a kiss on the cheek as I usually did, and said, "Goodbye, Nan. Love you." She said, "Love you too," and then I left without looking back as I held back tears. My Nan was 96 years old and was the focal point of my family. She was visited every day and cared for in her own home right up until the time of her passing. Next is the strange run of events that occurred on the night of the 21st of November 2015. My sister Julia and I had a previous booking for an investigation on a public ghost hunting event at 30 East Drive, the infamous Black Monk of Pontefract location. We were very much undecided as to whether we wanted to go, as our emotions were all over the place following our Nan's death earlier that day. We made the decision to attend after our mum said for us to go. She wanted to be alone to deal with the grief of losing her mum. We felt bad about leaving our mum and bad about going on a ghost hunt on the same day our Nan had passed away, but nonetheless, we went ahead and started the long drive up to Pontefract. The drive was a very solemn affair, not much talking between myself and my sister as we were lost in our own thoughts, worrying about our mum and how she would cope after losing her own mum. We'd been driving for a while listening to a CD, and we noticed that the song Hello by Adele had repeated itself. We both kept hearing, "Hello from the other side." I must have called 1,000 times. It seemed louder and more noticeable. My rational explanation was that we noticed and related to the song lyrics more, especially at that very emotional time. Both of us noticed this occurrence at the same moment. We both looked at each other and said, "That's a bit weird. Did you hear that?" And both agreed we did. We decided to pull over at the next service station to grab a coffee, and it gave the opportunity for my sister to phone her partner too. We were both still unaware of the occurrence which had taken place back at my mum's house, at the exact time Adele's song was repeating itself in the car. We arrived at 30 East Drive and thought nothing more of the strange event, brushing it aside as simple coincidence. We walked onto the property only to find out there had been a mix-up between 2 paranormal event teams and the location had been double booked. There was arguing between organisers and the 25 guests crammed into the 3-bedroom semi-detached house. It was a horrible situation, and my sister and I both made the decision to leave and go back home. Our hearts weren't really in it anyway, if truth be known. We made the long journey back. I dropped my sister off at her house and I went home. The next morning, my mum asked me why I kept phoning her the night before. She said I had made 6 calls from my mobile to her house phone. At the time of the calls, I'd been driving with my phone in a cradle on the car dashboard as I was using it for navigation. I know for certain it didn't make any calls. whether accidental or otherwise. My call log confirmed this, as it showed no outgoing calls from my phone that night. Yet on my mum's answering machine, there was a call from my phone and a message had been left. On listening to the message, we heard a very faint female voice say, "Wendy." Wendy is my mum's name, and my mum had listened to the message over and over and said that the tone of the voice and the way her name was pronounced was my Nan Hilda. I listened to it, family members listened to it, and we all agreed it sounded like my Nan. None of us could explain how at the same time as Adele singing "Hello from the Other Side" on repeat in my car, calls were made from my phone to my mum's house phone and a message being left. I had gone over these events time and time again in my head, trying to make sense of it all, but I can't come to any logical conclusion. Maybe it was my Nan contacting my mum in her time of need and trying to comfort her. I would like to believe it was my Nan using technology to leave a parting word, but it may have been just a series of coincidences. Yet nothing can explain the calls from my phone and the message left on the house answering machine. I've attached the recording in this email, so you can hear it for yourself. Kind regards, Mark. And here is the recording for you all to hear.
To return the call, key 5. To replay the message, key 1. Dave.
Mark also sent in one more story. A story so incredibly personal that reading it brought back memories of my own experiences with a very delicate subject, the loss of a loved one, but more so the journey which it can sometimes take us all on, our feelings of helplessness, and in Mark's case especially, the feelings of betrayal, even when you know that what you're doing is for the best. This story also comes with a request from Mark that it is dedicated to his dear dad, and that is something that we are more than happy to do. As part of this email exchange, Mark also included a fascinating 1,000-word thesis about near-death experiences, which was the subject he chose to write about as part of his parapsychologist course. All of this will become apparent when you hear this story. This is Mark's account. The following story recounts one of the hardest periods of my life, which involves the death of my dad and some strange occurrences or coincidences that occurred at the time. I've looked back at these events with a logical mind and tried to rationalize it all in my head, yet I still can't explain what took place. In August 2004, my dad, who was 59, started to show symptoms of illness. Hands and feet and face swelling up. We took him to see a doctor and they seemed at a loss. I joked, "You never know, you might have an illness named after you." I deal with everything with humour. Some might say a very dark, twisted humour. My dad was sent to hospital for some tests, the results of which were devastating. We were informed that he had a very aggressive form of cancer that had already spread from his lungs to every part of his body. My dad didn't want to be messed around with, and when they asked him what he was going to do, he simply said, "I'm going home to have a cigarette and a pint." As a family, we have never felt such desperation, knowing there was nothing we could do for my dad, even though I would have gladly given any part of my body to save him. We took Dad home and tried to carry on as normal as we could. As time progressed, my dad would not sleep. He kept telling us he was scared of seeing a white light. It terrorized him. He would wake up shouting and frantic. We were told that this could be because lesions had spread to his brain as the cancer was progressing. Dad started to show signs of dementia, so we had to look after him around the clock, not just for his safety, but for ours too. During this period, my wife at the time and I found out we were expecting our second child, which was due in May 2005. We told Dad that we would pass on his name, Philip, to our son. He did say this was nice. It was just heartbreaking that he would never get the chance to see or hold our second son. As the cancer ravaged Dad's body, we came to the difficult realization that we couldn't offer him the care he needed and had to make the impossible decision to admit him to a local hospice. We spent all our time with him. He was still terrified by the white light, and I remember having to calm him down and physically hold him while he was screaming in terror. It was also at this time that he broke me, begging me to take him home. I have never felt so useless in my life, and still to this day feel that I betrayed my dad, making him stay at the hospice, even though it was the best place for him. Dad was moved into a private room as he was declining in health. Due to the medication being administered, he was sleeping more and more. This was where little events made me question all I believed in before about life and death. As soon as he moved into the room, a little sparrow, which seemed to be injured, appeared outside by the glass doors. The sparrow looked as though it wanted to come into the room. A few days passed, and the sparrow remained by the glass doors. We gave it food and water, but it just stayed there. By this time, my dad had mostly stopped communicating and didn't speak much. We would sit and talk to him. He insisted on sitting in a chair, refusing to be put in a bed as he feared going to sleep. Then came the point where he didn't recognize us, and we could see the light going out in his eyes. It's hard to describe the level of heartache and feeling of uselessness we all felt. We would hold his hand, talking as we would normally, hoping he could still hear us even though we would not get any response. Still, the injured sparrow remained outside the glass doors, always observing us. My dad had not been responsive or vocal for a few days when one day he looked over to the entrance door and began speaking to his mum. He appeared as though he was looking right at her, despite the fact that she had been dead for a long while. On a Thursday, he clearly said, "Oh, come on, Mum. 3 more days isn't going to matter." They were the last words he ever spoke. Meanwhile, the sparrow's health was also declining. So we brought it in and placed it in a shoebox padded out with soft bedding. Some of the other residents in the hospice took care of the sparrow and kept watch of it in the day room. As the following Saturday came around, we knew my dad's time was coming to an end. His breathing was laboured and shallow. It was the hardest, most saddening sight to see. This once strong man, full of life, was reduced to a husk in front of our eyes in just 6 weeks from diagnosis to the present moment. I was not only losing my dad, but a friend too, as we used to do so much together, play darts, watch football, and just have what my family would call silly talk. I took hold of my dad's hand and summoned up all my strength to say, "Dad, it's time to give up the fight. It's time to go with your mum and be with your mum and dad. Don't be afraid of the white light and go towards it. Oh, by the way, as you are a bird lover, there is a poorly sparrow in the day room. Can you take it with you?" And with that, whilst I still held his hand, he took one last deep breath and passed away. I can't describe the feeling. Devastation mixed with relief that the suffering was now over for Dad, and the feeling of not knowing what to do next. We wandered around the hospice, and I went down to the day room, where some of the other residents offered their condolences, then informed us that the poorly sparrow had just passed too. I will leave it up to yourselves to decide if this was a coincidence or not. Do the events add weight to the argument that the spirit world exists, and loved ones come to collect us when our time comes to pass? Was the sparrow a guardian, sent to look over my dad and ensure his safe passage to cross over into the light? Myself? I take great comfort from the experiences, and I hope they show that from desperation and devastation, moments of pure love and beauty come through at a time when we need it most. This story is dedicated to my dear dad, Philip Ashby. Love you, Dad. Love the podcast. You helped me through my own times of darkness. Regards, Mark Ashby. I do apologise for the way I've read this. I tried to read this over and over again, but I just simply couldn't make it all the way through, so I just decided to leave it in. Mark has written a thesis on near-death experiences, and it's incredibly interesting exploring the multifaceted nature of them, as well as cultural perspectives. Mark has kindly sent us his thesis, and we plan to use his research in an upcoming episode on death and near-death experiences in Season 8. With that in mind, we give a huge thanks to Mark and to all the listeners for the first part in our listeners' episodes, with 3 more to go. And what will they bring? Hold on to your hat, because intrigue, eeriness and fright might just blow it away into the dark, dark depth of the night. So with that, we say goodbye for now and leave you to have a think about your own tales. Leave you to consider if you could perhaps send them in to us to devour. Because the next person to be on the show to regale their moments of stranger things, such as the veil between life and death, or grey ladies in halls and landings, cardigan stealing ghostly librarians, or dreams which flower into premonitions. Well, the next person to do that could be you.